Hi everyone, this is Sagar Shah and I'm currently in Powai, Mumbai, covering the World Youth Championships for Chess Base India. And you might have seen a lot of interviews that I took at the venue with the players. But there's one guy whom I was not able to interview until now, and that is Abinandhan. His rating is just 1830 and he started as the 55th seed in the under 14 open section. So nothing much was expected from him in the event, but he has surpassed all the things that he required to do, and he's currently on 6 out of 7 points, and he's faced very strong players, many FMs, and he's beaten so many of them. His current ELO performance is 2568. He's gaining 211 points. Definitely, he is the find of the tournament. So today, I'm going to try and get an interview with him, try to find out what he does so that he's playing so well. But before that, I would like to show you the game that impressed me so much. So it's not just about the results, but it's also his level of play that is very, very commendable. He was white in this game. This is round 7 against Andrey Tsvetkov. Andrey is a young Russian chess player who's rated 2382, one of the big talents of Russian chess. And so Abhinandan with the white pieces played e4, c5, knight c3, d6, g3. So he plays the close Sicilian, and from whatever I've seen about his games, I realized that when it's the opening phase, he's not so great. His strength lies in middle game play, as we shall see. Knight c6, bishop g2, g6, d3. So this is all very common. Played bishop e3, e5, and now queen d2 is one move. You can also play knight ge2 here, but Abhinandan goes for knight to h3, developing the knight on this square, and later on you can just play f4. So knight g7, castles, castles, queen d2, all very standard. Now knight d4, so you have to be slightly careful here. Let's assume you make a move like rook a e1, then suddenly bishop takes h3 becomes quite a big problem, because after taking there is a big fork on f3, and if you take on d4, I could take back on g2 and win the game. So f4 was a correct move, controlling the f3 square, and then after bishop g4, white played king h1. Now king h1, first of all you get your king out, but also you create a square for your knight to come back on g1. Queen d7, he went back. So this is all very original play by Abhinandan. Rook a e8, and now knight d1. The idea is to push c3 and kick the knight out. E into f4, I like this move. The main idea is, okay, he can take back g into f4 as well, but then I break in the center with d5. In the game, he took with the bishop, and here as well, black went knight to e6, which is not a bad move, but I would have preferred playing d5. The point is very simple. Look at white's pieces. They are all sort of not organized right now. And with the move d5, what I'm trying to do is take advantage of this fact precisely to open up the position. Say c3, I can go back, and then I can threaten to take on e4, and suddenly all black's pieces, which are sort of well positioned, start coming into the game. But he went knight to e6. Tsvetkov was not really keen on playing d5. White went bishop h6, and now takes, and here comes the tactic which black wanted to execute. He took on d1, rook d1, and played queen to a4, attacking two pawns over here, and he said, look, my king looks pretty safe, so I'm going to win one of your pawns. I have my knights near my king. And here Abhinandan said, well, I'm going to punish you for what you are doing, and he starts an attack on the king. This is really very imaginative. So firstly, what should white play here to start the attack? Okay, good job if you found the move bishop to h3. And it's so very important to see that after queen takes c2, which is the more critical pawn because it's more closer to the center, you have the move rook to d2. And the idea is that if the queen moves back, then now I can take rook into f7, and if you take with the rook, I have bishop e6, and if you take with the king, I have rook f2, knight f5 is forced. If you move the king, e6 hangs, so knight f5 takes, and this is just going to be checkmate. So instead of taking on c2, he took on a2 over here, and in a way he also defends the e6 knight. So rook went to f6. Now black decided to take another pawn, and now this is interesting because the queen is always looking to come back. Rook a f1. This is turning out to be an exciting attack. Knight jump to d4 over here, and now my next question to you, how do you continue here as white? Okay, Abinandhan found this nice move, bishop to d7, and he's attacking the rook, but more than that, he's also clearing the h3 square for his knight to come to g5. Rook to d8, and now knight went to h3. So black's turn now. Of course, you can't take the bishop because knight g5 is game over. So black has only one move to try and stay in the game. What can he do here? Mind you, you are 2 pawns up, so be a little more generous with your material. Don't try to cling on to it and get checkmated. Okay, well done all of you who found the move knight df5, attacking the queen and also the rook to f6, cutting the connection. So white has to take with rook 6 f5, and here black took g into f5, which I am not very happy with. You know, black had a very strong move, and if you noticed it while calculating this, well done, because the right move is queen to g7. Now you are attacking the queen, and yes, you are a piece down, but after queen takes, king takes, the rook is hanging and so is the bishop. So the variation is not yet completed because after rook f4, black takes, and now black would be completely winning. He is 2 pawns up, but white has knight g5, attacking this pawn here, and then after knight c6, he jumps in with knight to e6, creating a fork. After fe6, rook f8, but here black goes knight to b4, attacking the c2 pawn, and then after coming back he goes d5, and I think it's black who is pushing in this position. White is under some pressure. Black has no risks here. He has 2 pawns for the exchange. So this move was definitely important to be found, queen to g7, and if Abhinandan had, if Tsvetkov had done that, I'm not sure what the result would have been, because if you don't take and you go back, then I can just take on d7 and the attack doesn't look as scary as before. Okay, gf, and now this is a nice move, e into f5, just taking back and threatening f6 and a checkmate. So f6 was played. Now rook d7, f6 is losing. If you play queen h8, I have queen g5, take, and queen g4, and I have 2 pieces for the rook with some attacking chances still remaining. White is better. So f6 was played by black, and now bishop e6, saving the bishop. White is an exchange down, but he still has 1, 2, 3, and you can even say the rook will join in soon for the attack. So how do you continue the attack now? Yes, you bring your knight in and you're threatening knight to g6 check here, and if he takes, then you take fg, threatening a mate on h7, when black is really in trouble how to defend. So black went rook g8 and he said, well, take my bishop, I'm okay. If you take this, I'm completely fine. But of course Abhinandan was take my rook, sorry, with your bishop. Abhinandan was going to have none of that. He played the move knight to h5. Nice move, looking at the f6 pawn. Here black surprisingly has no real good way to defend f6. So he went queen to e5 and now knight f6, threatening a mate on h7. Rook g7 and knight back to h5. Black really wants to give back some material. He played rook to f8 because he's like, take this, I'm very happy to go into an endgame like this, because this would be again fine position for black. But Abhinandan is like, wants to move forward. He went f6, good move. And then rook f7 was played. And now I want you to calculate until the end, what would you do here? Yes, bishop f7, rook f7, and now queen g7 check was the strong move. And after rook g7, f g7, king g8, rook f8 is a mate. And if queen into g7 as was played in the game, then after knight g7, king g7, white is an exchange up and black has only one pawn. But even this phase of the game was beautifully played by Abhinandan. I really loved it, because he went rook to a1 first, attacking this pawn. Black defended it with knight c6. Now he brought his king in. So if the king starts moving up, it would not be great for black. So black says, I need to get counterplay a6, c3, knight to e5, and now rook b1, attacking b7, and then after b5, rook a1, knight takes d3. And here you realize that actually in such endgames, it's more important for white to gain a passed pawn and activity. So here his rook is okay to exchange pawns. If he can win all of these black pawns and give up his one pawn on c3, then he already has an extra pawn on the king side. d5, rook d6, strong move. d4, and now takes c4. This was black's idea. He wants to push now, and if you are not careful, let's say you make a random move h4, then c3 is already very strong, because now you even have c2 and black wins. So you have to be careful, and Abhinandan was right on the ball. He played rook c6, knight b4, and rook c5. Knight went back to d3, and once again, if you take here c3, so you can see how Tsvetkov is very, very tricky. Check, king g6, rook c7, have c2, and that fork comes back to the picture again. Now this would be a drawish endgame, I guess, but still you don't really want to go into such things. So Abhinandan gave a check, king f6, and now brought his king in. You can see how both the pawns are not moving forward. King e6, king e3, king d5. He took a pawn, check, push the king back, check, king b5, and now rook h8. Another fine move to get behind the pawn and now bring his king even closer. Fantastic play. I would say flawless in a way. King a3, king c3, knight b2, check, knight a4. He took one pawn, and now he's okay to sacrifice his rook for the pawn, because these three guys are going to be impossible for this knight to handle. Few more moves were made, but after this Tsvetkov resigned, because he realized that, let's say if he goes here, he has to give up this knight for the pawn, which is completely lost. So what I really loved about this game is Abhinandan's flawless attack, fearless attack, I would say. Not flawless, because there were defenses. I would say black had a couple of places where he could improve. d5 was one of them, breaking in the center. I thought this was a strong way to play. And the next one was this move here, queen to g7. If Tsvetkov would have played it, who knows, maybe he would have won the game. But once he took here the attack with the knight and the pawn on f5 coming in, and then this conversion, this is so difficult to shift from attack to then converting a position, but Abinandhan did it beautifully. Today he plays on the one of the top boards. I think he's playing against Srihari, and we wish him good luck. It will be a very interesting game against the two Indians, and we look forward to it.